Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
Good morning, everyone. Hello to each and every one of you this morning. Lovely to be with you. Lovely to have this Friday together. And as you see, I moved places again, trying to find a better internet connection somewhere in the house, but it seems to be really off this week, and I'm sorry for that. So if the video is irritating, just close your eyes and listen to the voice. Or look into the chat box where all the beautiful sharing is happening. Meet your Sangha, meet your community, and happy to be with you all. And Church let me know yesterday in a very short conversation that we have a new feature I wasn't aware of. We have a question button now. So if any questions come to your mind, anything you would like me to respond to, it doesn't need to be a question. Sometimes we can't formulate a question. There is a Q item with a little A at the bottom, like right next to your chat box. And this is where the questions could go. So then I will make sure I'll find them. And you can there are other features around. If you have any questions on that, just let me know. I'll ask the Sangha. So it's our last day today, which gives me the invitation and the possibility to mention Dana once more, very gently. Dana is something. Yeah, we could do a whole week on Dana. But to say it's an act of reciprocity, which leaves open or which adapts to our personal possibilities and finances at the moment. So I feel grateful for everything I have received from you so far, which is a great support to my family. And first of all, thank you for all of that. And secondly, all your gifts supports myself to 1/3 and to 2/3 Sangha Life. That's roughly the agreement we have, so that you give the possibility for these sessions to continue. And on behalf of Sangha Life, it's just like my role to say thank you here as well. And you will find a link at the end of the session. Good. Let's get started. And today I want to set grief in context. That is something we haven't done yet, and which I just want to kindly and carefully remind you that this is something we shouldn't be doing too early in our grieving process. There needs to be a context, like grief, like everything else, and grieving, like everything else, belongs to a larger picture and is not meant to stay there on its own. Yeah. If we get stuck in grieving, if we run in circles, if we do not no transformation is happening, and we just end up at the same point again and again, we get stuck. And probably it's not the grief itself, but it's one of those dynamics we talked about the last days. That is one form of stuckness. The other form I would describe as being constantly on, like being constantly in the grieving. I perceive a healthy form of grieving to be more of something like a wave. I mentioned the birth waves, which come and then can get very intense and then they subside. Or I was thinking of whales, particularly the really large whales. They can dive really deep, yeah. But before they dive really deep, they go up to the surface of the sea and they take oxygen. Yeah, they nourish their bodies with the oxygen, and then they can dive really deep. I don't know a lot about the physiology of whales, but that is what I know. And I feel the same is true for our grieving processes. There needs to be motion in it. There needs to be transformance in it. Else being stuck in grief, yeah, and maybe rather something than this experience, something than despair and maybe bitterness. That is a form of stuckness where there is no motion in the emotion, and I would consider this to be dukkha. Yeah, I don't think grief is dukkha. It's unpleasant. It's deeply unpleasant, and we are being grieved at times, but I would not say grief itself is dukkha. It's the stuckness in it. It's when there is a lot of emotion, unstuckness, and constant exposure to it. I think there is where the dukkha can through. And at this point, I want you to remember, and I think that is part of creating this context, that the Buddha never said all there is dukkha. Yeah, that is how sometimes the First Noble Truth gets translated, and sometimes how we translate it to ourselves. In moments of grief and bitterness and despair, this is our vision. This is our vision. And sometimes we do it with another. All there is in your life is dukkha. And we're not doing the other a favor. We're reducing, we're identifying the other with their dukkha. Yeah. But we can say hand on heart, and that's more in what the Buddha had in mind. There is dukkha. Dukkha is part of it. Yeah. Dukkha is part of it. And sometimes I think this First Noble Truth would be enough for a lifetime to work with. It's really hard to integrate this truth. Dukkha is part of it. It's part of everything, everywhere to be found. And it's not all there is. Yeah. And just like the end is sometimes hard for the paradox of the end is sometimes hard for the mind to work. So it's a process of almost like approaching that truth and say, how much can I bear and be with at this point of time? So on the one hand, there is challenge and change and loss, and that is all true. And part of learning to be with that is grieving. And it's not all that there is in any given moment of time. There is the grief and there is something else as well. Something like we practiced with our body, something stable, something beautiful, something nourishing. It's there as well. So that is something I think which our practice offers us tools and ways to work with so that we do not drown. Yeah. If we drown, we're in the realms of doom and despair. Or just a quick word, my understanding of doom would be a sense of fear, a fear of a future which I cannot prevent from happening. It's overcoming. It's like overshadowing already. So the terrible, the frightening, the painful experience in the future will come, and there is nothing I can do about this. And this leaves us in a very helpless, very hopeless state. And it's just not true. Yeah. There is something falling as a truth, which I don't know. How much is there fabricated of the mind? And is it really true that there is really nothing I can do? And if I look closely, most of the time, the answer to that within myself is no. Yeah. And sometimes it's just me finding back to some sense of agency to say, who knows what my contribution is to the larger picture? I cannot name that. And the Buddha said, karma is something like such entanglement. We should not even start worrying about it because it's unfathomable. So I do not wonder whether my contribution will change something for my mental, physical, emotional health. I will go back to trust in what I'm doing. Sometimes more for myself, for my own health than for the larger picture, because I cannot fathom the larger picture, but to stand up. And if I can't find a lot of meaning in the word, I create meaning. I create meaning by doing conscious, kind, and deliberate action from which I hope it will have some sort of rippling effect in this world. And that's my way of working with the doom. To say, if I see a lot of harshness, bitterness, hate in the world, what are the values I hope there would be, and how can I integrate them in today's experience? Yeah. may I live the values which I see are there so deeply missing. That is my practice, to get me back into, out of a sense of despair and into something I could do today. And in the despair, you will usually also find a lot of narrative and storytelling and self-referencing. Yeah. And my invitation to my heart is to say, come, dear mind, I notice you want to figure this out and integrate it and explain it and all that. Cool. Let's evaporate. Can I come back to the pure immersion? Here's the ouch, and here's the compassion holding the ouch. And that is often the time of relief. And I notice that if I cannot get to this ouch, or the numbness is very strong, the mind tries to solve it out by telling more narrative and storylines, etc. And sometimes it's more like a backwards work, where I notice a lot of narrative, storyline, and self-referencing. And that is an information for me that there is probably underlying dukkha and underlying grief and underlying bitterness, which needs definitely my attention. So I'm working my way backwards to the immersion. I also would like to integrate the grieving process into our larger practice. Like, grieving has for me a lot to do with the process of insight. Still Vipassana practice. Vipassana in the literal sense of looking deeply, looking well at something. And I just can see how often my grief is not a pure thing, but intermingled, like we said this week, with fear. Like all these stories which come up in my mind would say, this is going to be unbearable. What will happen to me? What will happen to my children? Who will I be? What will this say about me? How long will this last? Etc., etc. And to notice, there is a fearful heart. Like, this grief is accompanied by a fearful heart. And that needs, before I can tend to the grief, I might need to work with this fear and super fearful heart. And sometimes regret intermingles, and we did that, I think, on Tuesday. I wish I would have done something differently. I wish I would have found another solution, and so on and so on. So there is something which cannot almost rest into grief, because this continually knocking on the door, saying, solve me, figure me out. Mm-hmm. And the resistance. I do not want to feel this. I do not want to be weak. I do not want to lose control. I do not want to be pitied, whatever it is, we hold against the grieving process. Yeah. I just do not want to feel pressure to feel a lot. Yeah. So do we have an image of grieving like being a situation of total despair and failing, or I said something to say it would be totally fine to grieve very silently, privately, for yourself, in a very calm matter. No one knows what your way of grieving is. That is as individual as all the other emotions are. So I see a lot of potential when we integrate grieving into our practice. I see the potential for healing, for insight, see the potential for a deep peacefulness. A peacefulness which is close to surrender and not to defeat, and which is something the self-making, the self-reference, cannot potentially create. It's almost like the grieving sometimes dissolves the sense of self, or the self which wants solutions and wants answers and wants to figure out things and wants to sort out blame and responsibility and all that sort of thing. And in the grieving process, the self steps back and become more to a state of being and receiving. And there is, for me, peacefulness in it, which is something the I doesn't make. I don't do it. And in this process, I notice a lot of values and a lot of gratitude and a lot of meaningfulness spinning to the surface there. So grief can create a deeper sense of meaning in our lives. And now and can create more emotional flexibility in our lives. I find that it's almost like we're shifting and moving, and I'm reminded of the middle way between the beauty and the tragedy in our lives, and it's both there. And as I said earlier, part of our practice might be to allow both to have its place in our lives. And I'm reminded of our conversation yesterday to see both the vulnerability and the strengths of our children and grandchildren. To see if we grieve for the nature and all the loss in nature, to grieve it and to see its beauty. And there is still so much beauty we can be touched by. And Chill Fronster, one of my teachers, he said once we find she said something along the lines of we find the strength for action when we really, really love something. So the beauty aspect and the love aspect and the joy aspect and even the celebration aspect, this is almost where our resource for action comes from. We sometimes think if we grieve enough and if we feel guilty enough, we are taking action. But you see how that comes from a place of deficit, and obligation sometimes, Whereas I think if at least part of our wish for action comes of our deep sense of meaning and values, something the Buddha said we can deeply cherish. He was absolutely convinced that having values and a sense of integrity is something to be very, very joyful about and to celebrate it and say, wow, the beauty in my heart spilling out into this world in all these like small, kind and meaningful actions. That's beautiful. To celebrate that within others, and to celebrate that in nature. That is the other part of the coin. And so we need here in the Sangha and in the larger Sanghas and communities, we need to have conversations about both the tragedy and the sadness in our words and the beauty in our words and the beauty in each other. How easy does my perception slip off into something or say, oh, there are many people out there who just don't care. That's like one thread of thought I could find again and again working itself in the past year, that deliberately go out there and listen, and it's just not true. It's just not true. It's not true that no one cares. And so we need to really listen and be encouraged and fed, nourished by the beauty of other human beings as well. And the image which comes up for me is that mudita, the appreciation, karuna, the compassion / grieving in this week, they are sisters. Like these are hard qualities are sisters. And they're not envious sisters. They're sisters, like sisters, like ideal sisters. The sister we never really had because we all do not have, neither do we have ideal sisters, nor are we ideal siblings. But let's think of mudita and karuna as ideal sisters. They are not enemies of each other. They don't demand us to worship only the one or the other. We can hold both. We can be inspired by both. And if you still wonder what grief is for after all this week, and I noticed that there can be threads of that running where I thought something along the lines of saying, oh, wouldn't it be better to leave all this sentimental stuff away and do something about it? Isn't this just like a waste of time, a waste of energy, a waste of, I don't know, another's attention? I could just simply do something about it. And let me just point out two things. A, do we all have a cultural, societal based rush forward into action and solution finding? Isn't this something I have inherited from the larger context to say, oh, forwards into the action, and to diminish the value of rest, pause, receptivity, and emotion. And I'm just reminded, like, look into the myths and the storylines we cherish in our society, and aren't the stories we cherish in this culture all about the hero who takes action? Ever seen a hero he was grieving for very long until all of a sudden someone takes him out of this pathetic state and wakes him up and shakes him up or shakes her up. And so you cannot grieve. You need to take action. Yeah. And these are the stories which are deeply ingrained into our understanding of grieving. Say it's a waste of time. And I would like really question this. So inquire for yourself, maybe even after this week, what is grieving good for? Yeah. What is potentially missing in our lives, in my personal life, in our larger culture, in our societies, in our communities? We do not know how to grieve individually and as a community. What is missing? And if you still do not believe me, then ask why the Buddha, why on earth would he recommend to do the 5 remembrances of aging, illness, sickness, death, loss, and all of that on a daily basis? What would his reason be? Okay. That's all I had to contribute for this week. And I thank you so much for listening to me. Now we do a meditation together, and it will be one of more detail. We go into the gratefulness, the gratitude in a gentle a way as we did it with the grieving. Find yourself a posture. Maybe a deep inhale and exhale, which lets the surplus of words go. Always trusting that the heart takes in those snippets and pieces of images and information which it really needs right now. And the next best thing can go with the exhale. And I want you to bring some attention to this dear body. Maybe it's a dear old body. Maybe it's a dear body doing best it can this morning. And just see whether you're standing or lying down or sitting, whether you can bring some attention to the posture. What would it mean to gift the body with some softness and spaciousness? What parts of the body, what areas, what pockets, what corners of your bodily field would happily respond to the offering of softness and spaciousness? And if your body wants to move, allow it to move. Maybe there are some phrases which are not ripe and mature, not mature enough to open and soften and get a little more spacious. There is a reason for that. Maybe we can gently honor that and leave that be. Saying that's not ready yet. Then there are other areas in your bodily field will happily get a little bit more spacious if you attention, kind awareness knocks on its door saying, hey there, dear left shoulder, how would you respond to an invitation for softness and spaciousness? Then I would like to invite you to come up with anything which was gifted to you lately. It could have been a thing, or it has been a smile. It could have been nature revealing some beauty to you. It could have been a hands-on support. It could have been the Sangha this week, so gently holding space for each other. And what if we receive that humble little thing really as a gift, meant for you, brought to you? Meant to nourish, supposed to support you. If you have a visual type, you can imagine someone bringing it to you, just like see two hands offering the smile to you, two hands offering the supportive words, the gentle care, the helpful hands-on support. If your heart's gates are closed this morning and you know a bit of brick walling, put the gift in front of this wall. Maybe it's a wall of saying, nah, not really for me. That was just like pure chance that came by. He, she, they didn't really mean me. Oh, I know that story, Mara. It's a story which stops me from taking things in. But a shower right here. I just put this gift here in front of the heart. Made warm, made warm up the walls of protection. And then you might remember another thing. Or yesterday someone paused and held the door open, interrupted their busyness. Or me. And can you sit and stand and lie here and see the many gifts brought to you, the smaller humble gifts, all of them not perfect and maybe not lasting for very long, but there's so much which is brought into your life which you can acknowledge. And the small is really beautiful. Notice how the mind wants to find important and rich and deep and intense experience. Then make use of the everyday and the very small. Small is beautiful. I see the beauty of the milk in my teacup swirling around and creating clouds. I can feel the rare sunbeams this time of the year touching me, and this little warmth is delicious. And then very, very daringly, and only if you like to, we can turn it around. And we ask of the support and the kindness which came through our hands and our words and our thoughts and our intentions into the word. You remember the small acts of kindness and purity flowing through you into the word? Anything? And again, we start with small is beautiful. Every day is beautiful. Making coffee for colleagues in the work is beautiful. And making your kids some lunch is beautiful. That is your time and your energy and your attention flowing to the more than you. You can notice how that question makes the mind twirl and tumble, and Mara might show up now with a scale in his hands and say, well, let's weigh that. Was that good enough? Was that really worth mentioning? Like really, like this is so small, like it weighs nothing on my importance scales. Saying, oh dear Mara, I see you, and you're trying to weigh and evaluate and compare. And I can see you during this, and I can return to our small, humble offering to the word and hear the little warmth in it and the little kindness in it. I shall not be depressed, and I shall not be suppressed by the bottomless hunger of not enough yet. Something which never gets filled and never gets satisfied. I know that storyline. I've seen it many times. I return to another humble small action, greeting someone with a smile this morning, or yesterday, or the week before that. Find a little joy and a little confidence in these small actions of yours. And just remember that we're sitting with 92 others who did small actions like small pebbles, small ripples into this world. And can you feel and can you touch the largeness of that? Us all doing small acts of kindness through the day. And now we bring it home again. And now to your body. You might have had a swirling mind all the time. That's fine. These gratitude practices, they can do something to us. They can bring a bit of motion into our thinking minds. So right now, the invitation to root into the body again. Sitting bones on the chair, on the cushion, on the mattress, or on the sofa, on the bed, wherever you are. Roots through element below. The feeling there's lovely hands and there's lovely feet, which allow us to move in the world and allow us to take action. Breathing out the eyes and the ears and the mouth. Our doors to this world to see and speak beauty and to hear beauty. And then very gently bring them all back to movement. Allow fingers and feet. Dear body, may you move for a while just as you like to, stretching your anxiety. Do what body does, or just sitting or being still for so long, which is not easy for body. And then to come back to the screen when you feel ready, or when it feels right for you to do so.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.